Hello Year 10, this is a short introduction to Key Stage 4 from myself and Miss Wheeler. I will be talking you through your target grades and the next 2 years and what the next 2 years are going to look like. And I'll just hand over to Miss Wheeler, who will just give a short introduction as to what she'll be talking about this afternoon.
Hi there, I'm going to talk about pastoral support in general and some key focus areas for your parents and guardians in supporting you through Key Stage 4. Things to look out for and things to ensure they do with you, and hopefully that will make it a very successful year and Key Stage.
We hope this video is really helpful for you all, and Year 10 have certainly made a fantastic start to their studies.
Thank you for taking the time to go through this PowerPoint. I'm hoping it will point you in the right direction if you need support for your child this year, and also flag some key areas around supporting them yourselves. Here you can see our tutor team, and we have 2 new additions this year, with Mr. Messenger taking over what was 9ND and Mr. Richard Hill taking over what was 9TF. It should be your tutor that is the first port of call for any issues, and they will raise them with me if they need further assistance. We are very lucky that, as well as having an excellent tutor team, we have a much wider pastoral team. Mr. Bew leads us for the next 2 years as Assistant Head of Key Stage 4, with Angie Lee and Jess Kenyon as our pastoral assistants. Many of you will have heard Sue mentioned, used to run what we called AIM. We now call that the Bridge. And we're also lucky to have a school health nurse, a safeguarding administrator, and an ELSA teacher, all of whom are able to support students as and when needed. As always, your role in supporting your child is crucial. There's obviously a step up this year in expectations in terms of looking forward to the GCSE exams, but the general rules still apply. We need your child to be in school, and I'll come back to that in a moment. Correct equipment and uniform is key. This shows support for our school values generally. If you need any support accessing equipment or uniform, please do flag that, and we will always help where we can. Monitoring homework and behaviour is key. We're using Google Classrooms as our homework platform now, and EduLink as our way to record issues around behaviour and achievement. Please do make sure you've logged into those areas. If there's any issues with your logins, let us know. But they are key areas to monitor in terms of looking at the progress your child is making, the work they're being set, and where they are succeeding. Do encourage your child to apply themselves this year across the board, academically, but also with now clubs opening back up and extracurricular activities happening. They need to make the most of those to get that balance. And I would like to stress at this point that you should contact us where support is needed. Our main role is obviously in the education and well-being of your child, but we also can provide support in other areas, and we do very much try to be of assistance to families where we can. Attendance is key, and I'm very conscious that we're living in a time where it's not appropriate for us always to be in school. But generally, at normal times, your child should be in school every day and in every lesson. And the percentages around kind of academic attainment and attendance are really, really clear. It's absolutely essential that whenever possible, your child attends their lessons and is in the school environment for as much as possible. Also, completing any missed work is crucial. It is available on Google Classroom, or your teachers will provide resources and work for catching up, and it does need to be completed. There's no room for having gaps in our knowledge based on missing out on lessons. And this ties in very much with homework. The first time you learn something should ideally be in that classroom environment, but this is then followed up with an extension of homework, and a consolidation of learning happens in that process also. So it's really, really important that it's not just seen as something a bit extra. It isn't a bit extra, it's part of the learning experience, it's part of the learning journey, and it is crucial in going through and going back over the learning that's happened to make sure it's been fully understood in that instance. As I've already said, Google Classroom is where teachers log work for students now, and that is also accessible for parents. And in the first instance, it's where students should look for any lessons they may have missed for whatever reason. Some time needs to be spent discussing revision and organisation also with your child. They will need help with planning their time. They will need to understand the balance between time when they're working, time when they're relaxing, and times when they're busy doing their sports or their interests and hobbies. All three of those things are equally important. It's what gives them a well-rounded life experience, and it's what provides that balance when perhaps the pressures of academic life are beginning to kick in. We are giving guidance on that in school. We are working on study skills and revision skills. But, when they go home to you each evening, that's where that needs to then be followed up, and that's where further support and encouragement is absolutely needed. In terms of what they should be doing, they should firstly be making sure that homework is done. They should then be looking at what they can revise using the materials that school has provided, but also revision materials that they're making as they go, and revision websites, which I will point you to momentarily. If you are unclear as to what your child should be doing, and they are unclear, then please reach out to their tutor who can gather that information for you. But do always firstly check Google Classroom. These are just some of the websites that your child may be signposted to by their class teachers. They're ones you probably recognise yourselves as well, and there are others. It's again important that students try to use ones that are relevant to the specifications that they are studying, and they should ask their teachers where they should be looking, but these ones that you can see here are definitely a good starting point for them. Understandably, parents often want to know how they can support the emotional well-being of their children, especially when the stress of GCSE exams can hit quite hard. There are 3 websites here that I would guide you to: Young Minds, Charlie Waller, and the NHS website. These are just a starting point, but you will find that they offer advice for parents and carers in supporting teenagers. Action for Happiness, I would encourage all of you to go and have a look at. It's a lovely website that has some brilliant calendars that really focus on looking for positivity and creating happiness. GCSEs can be a really tough time. Being a teenager is difficult. We all know this, but it's also very easy to dwell on the things that we're struggling with and to forget to try to find the happiness and to actually notice the positive. And that's something we're really championing with the year group. So I would encourage all of you to have a little look at that website and to look at the others if you're worried about issues around anxiety and other issues that some of our teenagers are dealing with at this time. I'd like to finish just really by flagging the thing I'd like us all to keep in mind over the next 2 years. Every child is different. Every child is good at something. Some of those things are in school, some of those things are outside. All we can ask of these individuals is that they try their very best. We cannot ask any more than that. Some of them do not realise how wonderful they can be, and they do not realise what they are capable of, and they underestimate themselves. So it is our job to remind them what capable young people they are, what wonderful attributes that they do have, and that the many different ways that they can shine. But all I would ask is that we remind them that they can only be the best they can be, and that is what we're asking. We're asking for their best effort and their best selves, and what will be on that front. We can't ask any more than that. Some of the students will recognise these pictures, and perhaps you as parents and guardians do also. But for me, these 2 images kind of encapsulate what we're aiming for. The first with "What's the bravest thing you've ever said?" asked the boy, is "Help," said the horse. There are going to be times when our young people need help during this journey. There's going to be some times when we as adults need some help, and we have to ask and we have to model that behaviour, and support will be given, especially if you tell us that you need it. And the other thing that I really want the year group to keep in mind is kindness. We can all strive for great academic results. We can all strive to be wonderful at a sport or a hobby or an interest. But ultimately, we all want to be and should aim to be kind and caring individuals. And if we can all aim to be kind to each other and to work with each other in that way, then whatever happens at the end of Key Stage 4, we will leave with wonderful young people going out into this world, whether it's to stay with us at sixth form, to go on to college or apprenticeships or work placements, whatever it may be. At least when we go, we can wave them off knowing they are going as wonderful young people with a whole host of skills to offer the outside world. I thank you very much for taking the time to look through this PowerPoint. I hope you are all well, and if there is anything you need from us, do reach out. We'll very much try to support where we can going forwards, and I wish you all the very best for the coming wintry months. Take care, and I hope to see you in person very soon. All the best.
Thank you to Miss Wheeler for that overview and introduction to the support that's available to students over the course of the next 2 years as they run through Year 10 and hopefully continuing that successful start they've made, as well as into Year 11 and of course on and beyond. In the next part of this update evening, I wanted to give a short overview of the curriculum broadly, exams, and of course then beyond that, and that wider world that we're preparing them for. To start with, let's just think on and reflect on the year ahead. Students are starting GCSE courses, and we really are delighted to have seen the brilliant start that's been made. Homework has been done to a really good standard, that effort has been there, the engagement in lessons has been wonderful to see as I've walked around school. And this is particularly important because these courses are made up of specifications that are challenging and demanding in many subject areas. And there's no question that a sustained depth and breadth of knowledge is necessary across those GCSE subjects. It is important to continue to realise and recognise that there are more exams than coursework, and that in many areas these courses are assessed at the end of 2 years rather than through coursework or modular exams over the course of time. This means that learning at first time is important. Students are going to be examined on the material that they're learning right now in their lessons day to day. And that constant recapping, revising, using the tools such as Google Classroom and other resources such as MathsWatch, Quizlet and OneNote remain really important tools to support the learning of students. Going back over things, revising, recalling and practicing remembering often have been shown to be the most powerful ways to assure student success. Of course, looking beyond the world of GCSEs and looking beyond education up to 16, we're always thinking about how we can best set up students to be successful in the wider world. And with this in mind, we're really excited to introduce our new Futures and Aspirations programme. This will involve employers at local and national levels coming into school, visiting students so that more students have more interactions with these individuals. And this, we hope, will give them a real sense of what they could go on to aspire to do once they finish their studies, either at 16 or hopefully with many staying into sixth form once they leave at 18 as well. Now today we've issued students with their GCSE targets and you will have received those through a report issued through Edulink. I just wanted to stop and pause and think about those targets and just talk through some of the rationale and process by which those have been arrived at. To start with, they are set centrally and they're based on their Key Stage 2 scores and the performance in comparison to similar students in the top 25% of schools nationally. We then make moderations and adjustments to take account of progress made across years 7 to 9. So this means that we recognise and reflect the fact that students have changed and developed beyond where they started at the beginning of Year 7 with us, and in many cases have made greater progress than would be expected up to the end of Year 9. Ultimately, we set out for these targets to be challenging and aspirational, but also achievable as the result of hard work. And I certainly wouldn't want students ever seeing these as a limit, as a cap on where they are expected to perform to. These need to be a beacon. Okay? They should be a guidance in the distance for them to be working towards, and actually working past in many cases. And as we've already said, with a culture and a mindset where we learn it first time, where we're thinking about the value of hard work, that determined effort, that revision, ongoing as we move through the course of the next 2 years, I have no doubt that in many cases students will be able not just to achieve their target grades, but smash past them as well. In order to support students and parents, there are a number of progress checks, and we look to make sure there are 4 of those during the course of the year. There are parents' evenings and 3 reports and progress reports through the course of the year, and those will start coming up, particularly into Term 2 for Year 10. Of course, within all of this, and particularly at the start of the course, the most important thing is being in the right habits every single day. That really high effort, answering questions in lessons, asking questions in lessons, being inquisitive, engaging really fully with your homework and putting your best effort in at all times. And as Miss Wheeler said, if we take the approach that where students are the very best that they can be, they will absolutely meet with success by the time they reach the end of their GCSE courses. So just a note on assessment and what this looks like and how this looks. Historically, our assessments and target setting have been based on old national curriculum levels, and that would then turn into the old GCSE grades, which some of you may still recognise. And it's important to realise, for those of you particularly where these are your first students through the reformed GCSEs, that these grades are now issued from grade 9, which is the highest grade, down to grade 1, which is a GCSE pass grade. And vocational and technical subjects, like our food and catering course, our engineering course, refer to level 1 and level 2 passes and attach a pass, merit or distinction in most cases to those grades. So again, I am stressing this. This has been the grading system in place for a number of years, but particularly where this is your first child through their GCSE courses, I do just want to stress again, students at the end of these GCSE courses will be awarded grades from 9, the highest grade, down to grade 1. So again, just a reminder for those of you who are familiar with this, but also this key update for those of you who are not. This grid shows how this works as an equivalence to the old grading structure. As you'll see, these were the new GCSEs from 2017 and have been in place for some time. So the old A and A star is roughly equivalent to a grade 7 and 8, with a grade 9 being just above where the old A star used to be. We refer to a grade 4 as a standard pass, which is equivalent to the old C grade, with a strong pass at 5 and 6 being added as grades roughly equivalent to a lower B in the case of the grade B and a higher B for the case of the grade 6. Grades 3, 2 and 1 are still GCSE pass grades, and those correspond to the old D, E, F and G grades. And if unfortunately students don't pass the GCSE, those are recorded as a grade U. So you can see here there is a range of achievement available from a grade 1, which is a pass, all the way up to the highest achieving grades at grade 9, with that standard pass being at grade 4. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. It's important that all students and parents are aware of how these grades are calculated and issued each year. Nationally, it is set that the same proportion of students from year to year, roughly, will achieve a grade 4. Of course, with centre assessed grades over the last 2 years, there has been a little bit of instability around this, but we've had the update from central government that we expect grades to return to the same proportion of grades as issued in 2019. So again, we are returning to this formula for your children's GCSE courses. Equally, the same proportion of students will achieve a grade 7, roughly nationwide each year, and the same proportion of students will achieve a grade 1. So again, these are set so that these standards remain roughly stable year to year to year. And then this then leads to the definition of a strong pass being set at the grade 5, and a grade 4 equates to the standard pass, and that will continue to be what's referred to as a level 2 achievement. And in many cases, as we'll comment on in just a moment, this is what is required to access many of the higher level college courses and sixth form courses that you or your children may wish to apply for. We don't expect the expectation for a standard pass to change to a grade 5, but there are a number of institutions who would insist also on a grade 5 being achieved as well, and that is certainly worth bearing in mind. So with all of this in mind, we are seeing colleges and universities setting slightly different pass grade equivalents, or what they are referring to as pass grade equivalents. University College London says a C grade pass, a standard pass for them is a grade 5, whereas the University of Manchester sets that at a grade 4. To train to be a teacher, for example, you would then need a minimum of a grade 4 in English and Maths. I think the immediate thing that students do need to be realistic and be aware of and to be conscious of is that it is a requirement that if a student doesn't achieve a grade 4 in English or Maths, they will need to resit those in post-16 education. Okay, and that is something that students need to be aware of. And It is important, therefore, that students get these qualifications under their belts, and we do expect and do look forward to, and we do celebrate seeing the vast majority of students reach that standard pass grade, and in many, many, many cases doing vastly better than that as well. But working really hard and working towards achieving that so that there is not then the requirement to resit English and Maths at post-16, at sixth form or at college, is something that is worth having in mind and is something students do need to be aware of. Ultimately then, what is it that our best students do, our winning behaviours? Those students who make the most progress, and that progress could be achieving grade 4s or achieving a collection of grade 8 and grade 9s. But it really does boil down to effort, and this is year in, year out, whether or not there's been disruption in school. Our most successful students are always demonstrating some of these habits and skills. Many started revision really early, and this is why we are doing revision skills and teaching students explicitly revision skills in tutor time at the moment. They started really early and they carried that on through the courses. They put their timetables together, but they weighted their revision, they weighted revision timetables, and they weighted their focus towards subjects and particularly topics that they found more difficult. They were also going back over past papers and completing those routinely. They went and made sure that they were checking the materials and specifications and using those to create lists of, we refer to them as key performance indicators, tick lists that reference and make clear what you need to do to be successful. Students also go back and look at past papers, looking at topics that have and haven't come up, and also, as we do in lessons, making use of examiners' reports. But ultimately, it comes back to students really making sure that they are learning it first time, learning it successfully, so that they're able to be successful across the length of their course, rather than leaving their revision into year 11. What students do now really does count, and with their focus and effort and determination now, they've got every opportunity to be successful into the end of year 10 and through into year 11. And of course, let's not forget, it is important to note that students will be sitting their RE GCSE this year, and that does mean we expect them to sit their exam as in normal years this year in RE, and that gives them that really good opportunity to demonstrate what they can do at this first part of this first year of their GCSE courses. And finally, before we finish for this evening and this afternoon, or whenever you are watching this video, I'm just going to come back to Miss Wheeler's key message. We just ask that students be the absolute best that they can be. Day in, day out, from big things to little things. From making sure they're in their right uniform and take pride in their uniform and take pride in being part of the school community, to having their equipment, to asking questions in lessons, to answering questions in lessons, to trying new tasks that they might find challenging, to be willing to get things wrong, to learn from their mistakes and to try and correct things as they go along and go through, to do the absolute best they can in their revision and their homework, to engage well with one another, to be kind and polite to one another. In all respects, this is the key message for our new Year 10 students. Walking around school, they demonstrate this day in, day out, being the best that you can be. And I have no doubt with that in mind, we can look forward to a fantastic 2 years with Year 10 into Year 11, and of course celebrating ultimately your success, which will be the result of your hard work. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this update this evening. We hope this has been useful. And if you do have any questions, please do feel free to make contact with your child's tutor in the first instance, or myself or Miss Wheeler. Thank you very much, everyone. We look forward to seeing Year 10 continuing to be successful through this year and beyond.